Ooh. Look at that. Oh. See into your future. Glass ball photography, or sphere photography, some call it crystal ball photography, which is why it gets its name. Ooh. Which is silly, I know. So we're going to be using this today. I'm going to be showing you how to get the best shots with one of these. I'm going to give you my 10 best tips on how to get really good photos with a glass ball. My name is Andy Hornby, photographer and vlogger. 15 years ago I started teaching myself photography. Today I travel the UK as a professional wedding photographer, landscape photographer and filmmaker. Learn from my experiences, my mistakes and my tips and advice. Join me on my photography adventures. Oh wow, hang on a minute. I can see something appearing. Looks like I need a shave. Oh my god. You ready for this? Wow. Look at that. Magic ball. Nice. Or not, whatever. Time. Whoa. Okay, so I am down in Southsea. I am in Canoe Lake, which is a lovely little area you can see behind me. I love coming down. I live just around the corner, so I come down here quite a bit. A really good little place to come. If you ever visit in Southsea, come down here. It's got a park and stuff for the kids, and in the summer those things will be available to use and paddle on. If you ask a photographer what they think makes for a great image, if you ask me, I'll tell you, it's finding an interesting perspective in something that potentially no one else has got. Now I live in Southsea and I come down, and you've probably seen from all my videos, I shoot a lot in Southsea, Old Portsmouth and in Portsmouth. And I do that because there's a lot of interesting stuff to shoot, which is great. But you'll also find is especially down on the south coast, there is a lot of photographers who shoot exactly the same thing. And you'll see all over there, the Instagram feeds, the exact same pictures come out time and time again. Now, what I tend to do is try and find a different perspective on the same image, maybe a different angle, maybe use a drone for instance, and I've done that a few times on a few of the bits and pieces around here, like South Prey Pier, which is just over the back there. I've shot that and it's an image that no one else can get. So it's the same with crystal ball photography. You can utilize this to get a different perspective on maybe something that thousands of people have shot before, but your take is going to be completely different, and that's what's going to bring the interest in. And that is why you're here today, hopefully to learn a bit more about why we use these things. And I've got my 10 tips for you to get the best out of one of these things. So let's do this. Okay, tip number 1, buying glass. You can spend hundreds if you like. There are companies out there that pitch these as photography glass balls. It's ridiculous. Go on Amazon. I paid 16 quid. That's about $21, and it does fine. Obviously, the more you spend, the better quality you're going to get. Potentially you're going to get a flawless crystal ball. However, with a little bit of Lightroom retouching, the glass I've got has got imperfections. However, with a little bit of Lightroom retouching, you don't even need to take it into Photoshop. A little bit of Lightroom retouching and you're golden. Seriously, don't buy expensive glass. You really don't need it. So now you've got your glass ball, all you need to do now is get out there and start taking pictures of it, and that comes to number 2, which is placing your glass ball. Now, I've seen a lot of pictures where the glass ball is placed quite far away from the camera, and then whatever subject they're looking to refract is even further away, and they're using a wide angle lens, potentially not the best idea. You need to understand your composition. So if you're getting a picture of a monument or some kind of large building, you want to place the glass ball somewhere where it's prevalent, close to the camera, where in your composition it makes sense. So think about your composition and think about where you want to place your glass ball. Which brings me on to number 3, safety. Don't be stupid with your glass ball. Be safe and use your common sense. Don't be placing it somewhere where potentially it's going to fall from a great height, especially where there's a lot of people around. We all want to get those really nice shots, and you could think of places where you might want to put the glass ball to get a better shot, but use common sense. It's simple as that. Don't be silly. Number 4, sorry, I put my gloves on. These things are ridiculous, but to keep my hands nice and warm because the sun has gone in and it's freezing. So number 4 is composing through the glass ball. Now, we've touched on composing the image, the whole image, but think about your image inside the glass ball, because we're going to be focusing on that. So you need to compose the background that is seen through the glass ball in the glass ball. Does that make sense? So look at a couple of these images I've taken before, and you'll see that the composition inside the glass ball is just as important as the composition of the whole image. So bear that in mind as well. Number 5 is very important, and that's your aperture value. Now there's a bit of contention about how to get this right with glass ball photography, because you need to understand what's going to be in focus and what's going to be out of focus, and how out of focus you want that to be. So we're going to be focusing on the subject that you're composing inside the glass ball, so the backdrop is going to be out of focus. So we need an f-stop value that's going to allow for that. If your f-stop is too high, your background is going to be in focus as well as what's in the glass ball, and the focus of the glass ball won't be the focus of the image. You might as well take a landscape shot, or just plonk a glass ball somewhere in a landscape shot and just take a picture with a glass ball in a landscape shot. Whatever. So bear that in mind. Your f-stop should be somewhere around f4. If your aperture's too big, then it's going to be hard to get focus on your subject in the glass ball. So bear that in mind too, unless you've got a focusing system that you can zoom in or maybe focus peak. And also depend on how far the glass ball is from your camera and how far the background is from the glass ball, because that's what you're going to be focusing on. And that will also depend on how blurry your background is going to be. So bear that in mind. The best thing about shooting in this day and age is that we have digital cameras. We can take more than one shot, so you can have a look at the picture after you've taken it. If it's not right, you can readjust, change your aperture, change your settings to compensate, and take another shot. So bear that in mind. Aperture value. Number 6 is the focal length of your lens. The focal length of your lens will have an effect on the background and how close it looks and how blurry it gets. So it will affect what aperture value you use. For instance, if you use a very wide angle lens and you're at f4, the background is going to be more in focus than if you use maybe a 55 or 100mm lens on the same composition, because with those longer lenses the background is compressed, it looks a bit closer and also blurs more even at the same f value. So bear that in mind. It's hard to understand, and I will do a video about compression and how different focal lengths affect the background even at the same f value. But for now, just remember that the longer the lens you use, and sometimes you're going to want to use a longer lens for this type of photography, the background becomes more compressed, and even at f4 from those different lenses you're going to get a different look in the background. So bear that in mind. Okay, number 7. So we've got our ball set up, we've got our camera set up, we've composed properly. So now we've got to consider our exposure. Now this is where you want to get maybe a little bit artistic, because you may not want everything to be exposed the same. You could light the glass ball with some kind of torch from the side or something. Just understanding your exposure before you take the picture, or even using Lightroom or Photoshop afterwards to change the exposure values, or maybe the background or the foreground, or maybe highlight the glass ball. Understand that taking a picture with the glass ball, the background potentially is going to be a bit darker than you'd expect, because normally with landscape photography you're exposed to the lightest part of your image, which is generally going to be the sky, or if it's at night somewhere where there's a lot of light. But you need to expose for the glass ball and the lightest part of what's in the glass ball, because don't forget we're focusing on the glass ball, so we need to expose for the light that's coming in the lightest part of the glass ball. Does that make sense? which potentially is going to make your background darker anyway. So your blurry background that we've already blurred is also going to be a little bit darker as well. And then in post you can do things like a nice vignette around the outside and stuff like that to really bring in the focal point of the glass ball. Number 8, create an interesting twist. You'll notice that when you take a picture with glass ball, the refraction in the glass makes your image turn upside down inside the glass ball, which is really nice. When you have nice pictures of monuments and places of interest, it's nice to see that upside down image inside the glass ball. However, another twist on that is to turn the picture upside down, so in fact what's inside the glass ball is actually the right way up. Now I do this quite often in my images. I'll showcase both the right image, and then what I'll do is I will zoom in or crop into the glass ball and then invert the image upside down, so the image inside the glass ball becomes the right way up, which is another way of going back to, you know, finding an image of something that everyone's done before. However, you've done it slightly different. That's going to really draw interest into your image over someone else's image of the same thing, and that's what we're here for, right? Okay, this brings us to number 9, which is going to be your initial processing. So you're going to want to blur the background, you're going to want to sharpen the ball and everything inside the ball, and really work on the intricacies of the of your focal point, which is going to be the ball. You've got to remember, especially if you buy a cheaper ball, the glass isn't as pristine, if you like, so you might have to do a little bit of intricate work on getting just a few maybe lines or scratches out of the ball itself. Really work on these because it's going to do your picture a lot of justice. And I know from experience, the ball I've got, there is a line inside it. I think it's where the glass would have melted together at some point. It's prevalent, you can see it, and I have to do a little bit of work sometimes. If I angle the ball just right, sometimes you don't see it, but generally it's going to be in the picture. And you got to remember, you're focusing on the ball. The stuff that's in the ball is going to be what your viewers are going to be looking at, so make sure you get everything inside the ball nice and perfect. Now number 10 is retouching the image as a whole. So you're going to want to bring down some of the highlights and bring up some of the shadows. Really work on getting the whole image sorted, maybe blur in the background so that the glass ball and everything inside there's sharper than the rest of the image. I know I've already mentioned this in number 9, but retouching is going to be so important in these images because it's really going to make your image stand out more than anyone else who generally just goes out, and I see it all the time on social media. A lot of these glass ball photographers who are doing this, they're just plonking a glass ball on the floor, take a picture and then uploading it to Facebook or Instagram, whatever. They look okay, but if you retouch your images and you do a bit of work, trust me, they're going to stand out and you're going to get such a better response from your social media. I know I've seen some of my images compared to some other people's images, and I don't, you know, photography is subjective, so what I think is good may not be the same as what someone else thinks is good. I don't know how to say it without sounding conceited, but my images that I take and I retouch tend to look a little bit better than maybe someone who's just taken a picture of a glass ball in a field somewhere. They haven't thought about their composition, they haven't thought about their subject, they haven't thought about focusing on their subject inside the ball. All these little things that are going to make it so much better for you, I've put into this little 10 tips, and trust me, if you follow these steps, you're going to take your glass ball photography to a whole nother level. I truly believe that, and if you've got any comments about this, please leave them down below if you're on YouTube. If you're anywhere else, I'm sure if you're on Facebook, you can comment on this video as well. But what I'm going to be doing now, I'm going to be going down to the beach in a second. Southway Pier's over there. Southway Pier is looking good. We've got a bit of cloud cover over there. I'm going to do a nice time lapse, but what I'm also going to do, so hang around, I'm also going to set up a glass ball shot just very quickly. A nice quick setup. I'm going to think about all the steps I've used today, all the composition, make sure I've got my subject right. The subject is going to be Southway Pier. I'm going to make sure it's sharp inside the ball. I'm going to consider my f-stop, consider what glass I'm using, and then take a picture, edit it, and you'll see that afterwards as well. So I'm going to go and do that now, and please hang around and wait for that, and also wait for the time lapse I'm going to put up there later as well. I'll put that on afterwards. So I'll see you in a bit. Let's get down the beach. See? you notice I'm doing here is I'm composing myself so I know that you can't see it, but just there is the pier. You can see just the end of the pier down there is not only in shot in my composition, but actually in shot inside the glass ball just here. And what I've done and what you just saw me do was actually focus on the pier inside the glass ball. Make sense? One thing I'll be really careful of when you're down the beach like this is sand getting everywhere, and it does get everywhere. You see my camera is actually upside down, although it's clever enough to know that it's upside down, so when I get this back the image will be the right way up. I don't have to mess around with that. However, you may have to consider that yourself. So I now have a good composition. I focused on the pier, but the pier inside the glass ball, not the pier in our main composition. So I'm going to take this quick shot now, and that's done. So we've put the ball, we've placed our ball, we've considered our f-stop. I'm actually at f4 here, and it's given me a nice fall off because I'm focusing on the pier in the glass ball, which is quite close to the lens, remember. So the distance between the glass ball and the pier over there is quite considerable. So even at f4, that is very out of focus. You'll see that in a minute in the picture. If I was going for a longer lens, I might need to come back with the camera a bit further away, because don't forget it's the distance between the camera and your subject, the fall off to the subject in our distance, if you like. And you could probably use maybe even f6.5, maybe an f8, and get the same effect as what I'm getting here, although the compression will be a lot more. It'll appear closer anyway, and you won't get as much of it in your final composition. So I've gone for quite a wide lens, got quite close to the ball, using f4, and we've got a lovely fall off to our background, as you can see now. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, glass ball photography. If you truly want to make your images look a lot better than anyone else's, you want to get a perspective completely different to everyone else, spend 16 quid, about $21, get a glass ball and do this. Honestly, it takes your photography to a whole nother level, and it's a level that not many people are doing at the moment. So you're going to be getting your images out there on the internet, and people are just going to love them. People love my glass ball photography images. I've done quite a few for the pier. In fact, they like them so much they're actually using them. So bear that in mind, do something completely different, get yourself a glass ball. From me in Southsea, I want to bid you adieu. Have a good day, have a good week, and until the next video, I'll see you soon. Bye.